the more you can leverage your own data and improve the quality of your own data, better understand how to take action and do things that are going to have an impact based on your own data. Is sort of going to be where the differentiation comes, is like the quality of your first party data. I'm Stuart Balcombe. I run growth at Arrows. We're a HubSpot App partner, HubSpot Ventures investment, collaborative customer onboarding tool exclusively for HubSpot at this point. So really involved in the ecosystem, content, community, and of course the product. So excited to be here. My first inbound.
Yes.
Very excited to be chatting.
Yeah, mine as well. Well, my first in-person one. I think that what's really been exciting for me over the last few years, kind of being in the HubSpot ecosystem and then, kind of being part of the community, is first of all, watching the growth that HubSpot's had. I think they've really kind of ridden a wave where companies that may have been larger or had bigger, more complicated use cases that may have not considered HubSpot previously are now considering them. But with that comes additional challenges, right? And the people that need configuring, more unique integrations or third-party applications. So I think that brings the user, the RevOps user, kind of into the fold a lot more in the HubSpot space. So is that a trend that you've seen in the time that you've been kind of within this ecosystem? And
yeah, certainly. And I think we've definitely seen the impact the RevOps can have, or effective RevOps implementations and processes can have on. And I think that the sort of bigger macro sort of thing here, which we heard a lot about this week at Inbound, is the connected customer journey, the connected customer platform, and having all of your data in one place has become such an advantage, or a thing that people actively are trying to do, and consolidate tooling into one place. And that ultimately means that you need more configuration, you need more. The implementation just involves more things to make that happen.
Right.
So I think the RevOps role has just become more and more important to build, to achieve the business goals that everybody's trying to get to. Trying to grow while keeping the team lean, trying to grow while being efficient in the resources that they spend. And I think that the ability of the RevOps role to sort of meet that need, both improve the customer journey, improve the experience, while also meeting the needs of the team and delivering what they need to be efficient and effective, I think has only become more true, and has only become more true as people try to consolidate more. And the role of data, and again, we heard this week, I'm going to mention it because I'm sure you will, we heard a lot about AI this week.
Yes.
And the impact of being able to layer AI on top of your data and not the general, training data that the model has, I think is going to become a huge competitive advantage. And the more you can consolidate that data in one place, the easier time you're going to have doing that.
Right. What did she say? Yamini say, the CEO of HubSpot? Content, context, and customer is how they deal with it. And it's true. It's like, you have garbage in, garbage out. So you can have the best AI in the world. If the data is garbage, if, your process is not, good, and you're not capturing the right data at the right time, then any insights or that you gain from that are going to be bad.
For sure.
And I think that's going to be a hard lesson that some people are going to learn quickly, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that to the sort of point that you made about, HubSpot is becoming the centralized place, and there's going to be more and more different use cases that people are trying to enable. HubSpot is an incredibly flexible and powerful tool, but at the same time, it's not built, in sort of the inverse of that, it's not built opinionatedly for any specific thing, which means you have to go build and configure it to meet your needs. It seems like the platform is adjusting to enable more of that, but that does mean that there's going to be more RevOps work and RevOps implementation to be done.
Yeah, and I think that's exciting because it's really true that every kind of go-to-market strategy is, while they're kind of the tried and true models that people have, when you go under the hood a little bit, it's like every company is slightly different. It's like, they're not going to be able to change their process in order to fit the way the CRM works.
For sure. Yeah.
It's got to be kind of meet them where they are. But we're here at Inbound, so it's we're live. So you got to meet the customers where they are, which I think is kind of part of HubSpot's whole thing. But have you seen the this kind of evolution of the HubSpot user and this more kind of builder, people that building on top of HubSpot. Have you seen that shift happen over the last few years?
Yeah, I mean, specifically from our experience and some of our focus at Arrows, and we're working with teams in onboarding and after the point of sale, which is, traditionally HubSpot has been a marketing and sales tool, and they're sort of layering on Service Hub as a newer hub. They're layering on more tools across the journey to continue engaging customers. But out of the box, there's a lot to do post sale. So we've certainly seen, just in the last 18 months that we've been in the app marketplace, more and more teams coming from where we started of, having an onboarding pipeline, having a dedicated pipeline for implementation is a new concept, to folks showing up with that already implemented and sort of ready to go, already thinking about, or even if they haven't implemented, they're at least thinking about bringing those teams in and trying to centralize more of that data in HubSpot. And I think we have sort of a couple of things that are happening at the same time. Like HubSpot is trying to expand across the customer journey, and at the same time, teams are trying to cut out these dedicated point solutions that don't integrate and create more work for everybody by siloing data and moving it around.
So that's another point I want to bring up, because this is a thing I'm seeing, and I think it's partially due to macroeconomic headwinds, but it does seem like there was a point where every team was like, okay, go out and get the best point solution for your whatever it is, and we'll figure it out. And now there's this consolidation happening. Are you seeing that?
We're certainly seeing that, and I think that it's not true for every team, but I think that teams are starting to understand, or at least better understand, the trade-offs they're making when they buy a point solution. And it's not just the point solution, or the requirements for that point solution aren't just serve the team that's using it day-to-day very well, because everybody else on the team is going to interact with that same customer at different points in the customer journey. And if that data, that context isn't coming back or isn't available and visible to the teams at different points, it becomes really hard to provide an experience that is beneficial and not frustrating. Nobody likes repeating information, especially customers.
Exactly.
So the more that you can bring everything together, give context when you need it, make sure you have that data available at all, has become more important. And there's the cost saving benefits of consolidation are there as well, which can be helpful. But we have certainly seen that. I mean, we made a big bet at Arrows. We deleted a third of our product and went sort of all in on HubSpot. That more and more teams would want to be CRM centric, that they would recognize the value of having connected customer data, or that they would make that bet, that they would connect it in the CRM rather than trying to integrate every other point solution. So maybe we probably have some sampling bias there, but certainly we've seen more and more teams bringing post-sale teams into HubSpot. Trying to keep everything together in one place.
The kind of proverbial single source of truth that everyone kind of talks about, but no one ever perfectly achieves. I think that even you may have a kind of biased view of, but as personally, I've kind of seen this very similar move. I want to shift gears a little bit, since we are at Inbound, kind of to hear about what you're most looking forward to, or which of the keynotes that you've had a chance to see you're most interested in, or that you've seen already.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is my first time at Inbound. I think that the thing that I've been most excited about, has been really cool, is meeting people that previously they only interacted with online, like yourself, like in person. I think that sort of building deeper connections in person has been really great. I liked Damesh's talk before, or talk this morning on the AI stuff, and sort of how it fits in, how to think about where things are going. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I think there'll be a lot of misapplication of all the new tools and everything that's available. I'm especially interested to see what happens on the content side. We will see what happens there, but I think that it's been really nice to meet people and to sort of make those connections. The HubSpot community is definitely thriving and growing very quickly. I think the future looks bright. Wow, that's a terrible metaphor,
commercial right there.
It's been really great to see people in person.
I agree. I think that we're still kind of coming out of this time where we were all locked up at home, and for me, this is, I think, the first bigger event that I've been to since, and so it's very nice to see everyone's face in person.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Stuart. Well, it's good to see you again. It's been It's been a few weeks since we spoke at Inbound,
Yeah.
and I wanted to follow up with you, see how the rest of the event was for you, and kind of how things have been going since.
Yeah, thanks for reaching back out. It's been interesting, really interesting since Inbound. I think an event like Inbound, there is so much going on that week. There was so much that you do sort of leading up to that. You sort of have expectations or um sort of some ideas about how it might go. And then the reality is that it's nothing like that, or at least a large degree not as you expected. And I think for us, it's been Inbound was really validating in terms of the sort of impact that we've been able to have and the sort of recognition that or the visibility that we have sort of within the HubSpot ecosystem. So I think the difference between I wasn't at Inbound in 2022, but I know for the folks who were there from the Arrows team and then were there this year, I think it was sort of night and day.
Or was it?
In terms of, like in 2022, the Arrows have been in the HubSpot ecosystem. Arrows have been in the HubSpot marketplace for something like 6 months, whereas this time around it was sort of 18 months, and we had done a lot more in the ecosystem, have sort of matured in the ecosystem, and that was sort of it was validating to sort of get some of the reaction from folks at Inbound that we got, which is always nice. And it's been interesting, sort of, now that we're a month or two after Inbound, sort of seeing the follow-on effects of that, which it's been nice to be able to sort of have some confidence to really push forward on things that maybe we wouldn't have pursued so aggressively before.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested. Maybe it's just I haven't been followed it as much before, but it seems like the rate with which HubSpot is releasing new features has like grown, I don't know, exponentially since then. It's like it seems like every day something new, very, maybe seemingly small to some person, but it made someone else's year. They've been waiting for that one thing, but it seems like they're releasing a lot more stuff now. I don't know if that's true or if I'm just
Yeah, I don't know that if I mean it's certainly true that they're releasing at a very very rapid pace, and I think have shipped a lot of things. I think it certainly since Inbound, it feels like there have been a lot of very impactful, even if small in sort of seemingly scope features that have sort of really big impact things that I think the community have been looking for, sort of asking for a little while, and they've certainly shipped a lot of those things. I think that that's been one thing that is that I don't think is just since Inbound, but the rate of shipping that the HubSpot is able to maintain has been impressive. Certainly since we've been in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
So I think it's the rate is probably a little longer term, but I agree. I think there have been a lot of really impactful things in the last couple of months.
Yeah. And
even if they aren't all giant splashy launches in the way that generative AI was at
right, exactly. So today we're in November now, and yesterday there was a big announcement. I'm sure you saw that HubSpot has acquired Clearbit, which I was pretty surprised by. I don't know if it was kind of known that was in the works, but I'm interested from your perspective what that means. Is there any like tea leaves we could read from that about where things are going, both for HubSpot and maybe like more broadly, kind of the operations world, about how CRMs and systems of record are going to be changing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be interesting. I don't know, a ton of specifics. I haven't delved too deep into, the specifics of the acquisition. And I think maybe that's a little unknown in general. Is like, what will this actually look like once it sort of goes through? Like, will Clearbit be an add-on for HubSpot that is, a bundled add-on? Will it be something that is more baked into the core platform? Because I think that is the thing that we talked about this at Inbound, was that ultimately the real power and the value of a platform like HubSpot, and they've talked about this the last couple of years, is the connected CRM, the sort of smart CRM that they're now calling it. And the more you can leverage your own data and improve the quality of your own data, better understand how to take action and do things that are going to have an impact based on your own data, is sort of going to be where the differentiation comes, is like the quality of your first party data. So I think it'll be interesting to see, how this particular acquisition impacts that. And I think it'll be interesting to see how sort of how native it becomes to the platform, how it fits into workflows and all the other things that the platform is sort of currently enabling folks to do on top of their existing data. Like, does that improve your ability to leverage some of those things with more enriched data?
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, it's like I was definitely surprised by it. I was not expecting it.
Yeah. I mean, HubSpot doesn't make a ton of acquisitions, right? So
Right.
it's
And
anytime they
Clearbit
do
is
is interesting.
is a pretty big player, so I was
Yeah.
pretty surprised by it. I thought it was a very shrewd move by them. I could see them, completely, merging it with the HubSpot platform. It might HubSpot kind of the way they began was like they defined inbound marketing as being like somebody gives you their information and then you then reach out to them. I think they kind of see that things are shifting in companies like Clearbit and ZoomInfo and Apollo and all that, that, it's potentially a way to help people expand their go-to-market beyond just inbound and maybe look for some of the signals that might indicate someone from company X, Y, or Z is looking at your content and then using something like Clearbit to then have your sales team go outbound to them. I think that might be the play, and I think that's the smart play because I don't know. I would, from your perspective, I think these labels of, well, our strategy is inbound, our strategy is outbound, we're product led growth, we're sales led growth.
Right.
I feel like the idea of being only one of these things is no longer possible. Like you have to be everything. You have to,
Yeah.
because you have to hedge. You have no idea what's going to happen in the market.
Yeah, I also don't know that it's ever been, it's very convenient for folks to give something a name, and then you can build around a name and things, something that
Right.
is simplified to the point where it's is shareable and easy to get a surface level understanding. But I don't know that it's true that there are too many companies that have been, especially when you look at sort of mega successful companies, that have ever been one strategy, right?
True.
Um, I always joke about, like, Slack, for example. It's like, yes, like the sort of poster child of product led growth, but they're not making their money on free communities and
Right.
folks who are getting up and running without paying, right? They're making their money on big enterprise deals that are not product led adoption. At least probably they might be product led adoption, but they're not product led sales
For sure.
necessarily. So I think that's certainly true that the more blended approach, ultimately the approach that is the best fit for the customer is going to win. And I think the easier it is for folks to meet people where they are, and the tools that enable folks to meet people where they are going to be the ones that win.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I do think that there is, and I think myself as a marketer, I'm guilty of this. There's always looking to like find a term that you can like brand, like product led growth, inbound, outbound, and
Mm-hmm.
like kind of win the SEO game on that. But I think it's to people's detriment because there was so much product led growth when, and you had VCs kind of telling companies you have to go product led growth. And then the macroeconomic situation shifted. And I think a lot of companies were not prepared for that. I get some of the RevOps people I've talked to say the challenge that they're seeing is that their company tried to go, all in on this and then realize like, oh no, we actually do need a sales led motion. How do we, support that now? Have you seen any of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think it's hard to. I think it's much easier to start out in one motion or the other. I think it's much harder to make a wholesale switch later,
Yes.
because it is not as simple as we're going to switch our go-to-market and say in a exec meeting, hey, we're not going to be sales led anymore, we're going to be product led, right? Like that has implications everywhere. So I think that and especially for ops folks dealing with the downstream effects of what that means. Um, so I think that it's certainly I think there are certainly more folks trying to figure out, how do I handle both? How do I optimize and make both motions efficient in a in tooling, in companies, in situations that weren't necessarily designed from the start to handle both. Right? And I
Yeah.
think that's sort of where the challenge comes in is what are the decisions that you've made because you were in one lane that now are either, suboptimal or in some cases like entirely the opposite of what the decision you would actually want to make
Yeah.
now. And obviously the more complex the system, the harder those things are to untangle.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I feel like the lessons I've learned are that you have to be proactive and not reactive on strategy. Like
Yeah.
you can't just, shift with the changing winds because winds are very fickle.
Mm-hmm.
I want to shift gears a little bit and maybe get a little bit of your point of view of things of how, the world that we inhabit has been shifting, like some of the trends that you're seeing from the ops perspective, from the HubSpot ecosystem perspective, things that are kind of maybe had started before inbound and have increased, any sort of observations that you have around kind of the current state of play.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're continuing to see, and we'd certainly been seeing this for the last probably the last year, certainly the last 6 9 months, of folks looking to consolidate more of their process in a single tool versus cobbling together uh, integrations and sort of disparate sources of information. So I think we've certainly seen more of a desire to do that. I think that HubSpot's sort of product wise is, and it's certainly ecosystem wise, there are more folks who are helping make that more possible. And I think that that is the the implication of that, I think, is that we are going, and hopefully at Arrows, we sort of made this bet to go all in on HubSpot sort of 18 months ago. And I think the bet that we made was that more people will want to have a CRM centric approach because of the benefits of not having disparate tools. You have a sort of more of a source, a more reliable source of truth. You have transparency and access to shared context across teams. And we sort of made that bet early and built the product around that approach that like yes, there are pieces of the product that exist outside of HubSpot. There are things that will need to happen outside of HubSpot, but ultimately everything needs to feed back to HubSpot and enable the workflow that starts or at least the operational process that is managed on the HubSpot side. And I think that we are starting to see more and more integrations, more and more tools taking a more similar or a similar approach, and the depth of integration that we're starting to see, and not just in our category, but sort of across the board is improving. And HubSpot is, and I think the days of check the box, we have a HubSpot integration or CRM integration, and it's just a sort of one-way data connection that does this one little thing and doesn't actually give you context on either side. It just sort of facilitates one thing. It's going to be challenging if that's the state of an integration to sort of keep up with what best in class looks like.
Mm.
And I think HubSpot is certainly that one of the big things I know all the solutions partners are raving about is the customizable UI components. Like HubSpot is certainly, and we'll see how quickly that comes to public apps, but certainly making moves to make it more possible to build more sort of natively integrated solutions. So I think that that's sort of the big trend, I think, is that more and more teams are trying to move, trying to take a more CRM, more HubSpot centric approach. And that means that the sort of level of integration isn't just integrate this or make the data connect. It's actually the workflow and the context around the data that's important.
I mean, so yeah, I agree. I definitely see this. I think that there's a lot of consolidation going on. I think that there was a time where every small part of the company wanted their own best in class thing and figure it out later. And that's changed. I'm interested in your thought about why that is. Is it a budget thing, or there's more pressure on having people took stock of the massive amount of different tools they had and realized we got to cut this down, or is it something else? What do you think it is?
I think it's two things. I think it's one is the sort of, but not necessarily the sort of total spend question, but more so the companies have a lot of tools that ultimately the more tools you have, the more tools you have to adopt, the more tools you have to train teams on, the more process you have to keep up to date. Like they're just sort of the breadth and overhead of having a more disparate stack.
Yeah.
I think is challenging, and ultimately we've seen, especially in the last year, the rise of I don't know if this is necessarily new. It's probably always been true to it. Maybe the degree to which it's been true has changed, but the rise of the CFO as a decision maker in purchase decisions. And if you're the more tools that you have that you're partially adopting or partially utilizing, it's just more tools that are easy for the CFO to cut,
Right.
because it's hard to make a case for a tool that you're not using. So I think that's part of it is, on the budget side, and on the sort of stack side is how do we make sure that we're getting the most out of what we're actually paying for? Like, why are we sort of duplicating functionality, or using only parts of things that one tool could do? But on the other side, I think the customer journey and the expectation of the experience for a customer has changed, right? The things that work in go to market today are connected, holistic experiences, that actually consider the customer at all stages of the journey. And in order to deliver that, you need context for everybody who's interacting with the customer. You need a sort of shared understanding of where they're trying to get to, where they've been. And it's just much, much harder to achieve that if you have disparate data, if you have disparate tooling, as opposed to one sort of centralized place where you can keep track of that and make sure that everybody has context. So I think, and obviously you can do it in disparate solutions. There are ways, but I think the increase in expectation and the overhead of meeting that expectation is much higher if you're trying to maintain many more systems than one.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that actually, goes to, so, the RevOps role, someone in that role's benefit, right? I mean, I think there's even more of a, desire to make sure that you have that, connected customer, the single source of truth, and make sure that the data is being passed and is correct. And even further down, through, not just, the sales process, but like revenue and revenue recognition and, upselling,
Right.
cross-selling, and all that stuff, in ensuring all that data is correct, because it all works together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think that is the biggest. I mean, we're obviously have sampling bias here. We're a post-sale tool on HubSpot, but I think that is a sort of in line with that connected customer experience, is that it's no longer, we close the deal, great, things are done, let's
Right.
move on to the next customer and close another deal. Like the impact of recurring revenue, the impact of expansion, the impact of retention is top of mind for everybody in a revenue role, right? So having tooling that supports that entire life cycle is critical, and disconnecting sale and everything else is challenging to sort of maintain or reach the goals and the growth metrics that everybody's looking for.
Yeah, I think that we're in an era where the net revenue retention KPI becomes even more critical than net new customer acquisition, especially now, especially with CFOs, like you said, having an even more important role, and it being harder to get a new customer. How do you kind of squeeze as much juice out of existing customers as you can without losing them? I think that becomes increasingly more important as we go forward.
Yeah, and I think sort of on that note too, that the uh, revenue revenue retention and ultimately expansion is net revenue retention that's positive uh, is not just a selling thing, right? It's not, oh, we sold this customer at this price, how do we sell them at a higher price next time? Like the impact of having more financial decision makers in deals isn't just true in the first sale, it's true in renewals, it's true in everything. And unless you can start to sort of prove the value of the investment, it becomes much, much harder to have a renewal conversation when there's so many options. And that's sort of to the point about how do you make sure that you have data, you have a process that supports every stage of the life cycle. If you don't close the renewal, somebody else will close an initial sale with the same customer.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's going to be, to me, that's kind of the trend that continues. And I think the companies that kind of accept that are the ones that are going to do well. As we wrap up, I just want to give you the opportunity to tell the folks at home how they can find out more about you, about Arrows, like where the best place to check out your content is.
Yeah, totally. So for me, LinkedIn is I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. A good mix, I think, or hopefully of sort of very tactical HubSpot, steal this workflow, steal this
Big fan of those.
report kind of content, and sort of how to operationalize and scale customer onboarding. That's sort of where the Arrows product fits in, or a collaborative customer onboarding tool built specifically for teams that are running their process, as we've just talked about, sort of across the lifecycle on HubSpot. So arrows.to is the place for that. And we also have all the steal list templates, all that stuff is on the Arrows site, sort of step-by-step walkthroughs of everything. So those are sort of the two places, LinkedIn and arrows.to.
Awesome. Well, Stuart, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us again. And look forward to post inbound 2024. We can have a conversation again about, the changes that have happened since.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, bye.